Right, I think we can get going. Welcome everyone to this morning's TechCentral hosted webinar featuring experts in cybersecurity from Performanta and Checkpoint Software Technologies. My name is Duncan McLeod and I am the editor of TechCentral. Before I introduce our two panelists this morning, I first need to deal with some minor housekeeping, very minor housekeeping this morning. Firstly, feel free to ask questions throughout the presentations today using the Q&A button in the webinar software. It should be somewhere near the bottom of the window where you're watching us today. We are planning to wrap up this webinar in the allotted 1 hour, but we have also allowed at least 20 minutes for Q&A after this morning's presentations. So please don't be shy with the questions. Secondly, we're running a great competition today. Up for grabs are 3 security defense assessments worth 80,000 Rand. All you need to do is to stand a chance of winning one of these assessments for your company is to complete the short feedback survey after today's event. That survey will be emailed to you. Please take a few minutes to complete it and stand a chance of winning one of those great prizes today. Now to the topic of the day, cybersecurity. Where should your focus be? And to our panelists from Performanta and Checkpoint. Our first speaker today is Performanta Senior Solutions Consultant Gerhard Swart. Gerhard will be followed today by Checkpoint's Matan Burstein, who is the company's regional head of security engineering. Remember that Q&A button, folks. Please ask your questions and we'll get to those at the end of the presentations today. So thank you. Over to you, Gerhard. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Duncan. Good morning, everyone. Lovely for everybody to join us today. I know it's not that cold in Joburg anymore, which is great for all of us. Just before I get started, one of the things that I've been hearing a lot, and this is even before lockdown, is a lot of our customers are complaining, and not just our customers, I mean, even over a braai, people are talking about security is expensive. Where do I start? It is complicated. More and more vendors are introduced, which adds more complexity, etc., etc. So the first thing I want to concentrate on is just to tell everybody, we only really need to worry about 2 things, and that is the users and the data. Obviously, users goes without saying that the endpoints are covered as well. And what has happened is with more and more complexity, we have gone back to the roots. And in 2014, which will be my first slide, NIST developed a cybersecurity framework. This has been, like I said, from 2014, this has been in place, and every time there's a little bit of changes to it, but it's nothing major. And the 5 pillars are still extremely valid. And those 5 pillars are, and most people will know this, is obviously looking at identify where all the risk-related issues are, deploying technologies to protect, ultimately moving into detect, of which we can go into respond, especially with all the incidents that are happening across not just the country, but globally as well. And then obviously recover. How quickly can we recover from incidents? We've been dealing with a lot of incidents this year alone, and all the customers that have the ability to recover quickly are usually come out of this incident much quicker. The share prices adjust very quicker as well. So what we have done, and there's a lot of models out on the internet which you can use, is we have mapped all, with regards to all these NIST frameworks, different security controls. And I'm not going to go through everything. I'm sure we're going to share all of this afterwards as well. But we have actually mapped it according the different technologies into the different areas. And if we look at the biggest portion of money spent, obviously, is in the core infrastructure, well, in the protect area. So that's your typical firewalls, your endpoint security, database security, data security as well, and obviously one of the most critical aspects nowadays is identity and access management. So all of this, like I said, is already available for everybody, and all I want to do is just say, look, we can use this type of thing to go to the board and just map it according to. So I've just given an example here where, for example, everything in green is currently deployed. In grey, we're planning to do it in the next 6 months. In blue, we're going to do it between 6 and 12 months, or maybe 12 to 18 months, doesn't matter. And then yellow is not on the cards yet. It is not advisable to build a roadmap for 3 years because obviously the security industry is changing on a daily basis. So we do roadmaps on a 2-year basis and just provide this. So very easy to do, and then it just gives you a little bit of ammo when you need to chat to the board. With Papaya coming into law now, a lot of questions have been asked around, listen, oh, this is complicated, this is complicated. And what NIST has done once again, in January this year, they developed a privacy framework. Now, the privacy framework looks at three parts, which is the core, which is the granular set of controls that you need to implement. It also looks at the profiles, which is then the functions within those controls that you need to look at. And only then do you start looking at implementation tiers. So if we go into the model itself and we look at the identify and govern, that is typically your risk or legal team as such that will be involved there. Your control is really around guidelines, documentation, processes, procedures, etc., etc. And it's very important to communicate back to the users themselves. We obviously know that the financial industry in South Africa is pretty strong when it comes to data, with the FICA regulations, RICA regulations, etc., etc. And only then should we start moving into the protect phase. So then we can look at implementing data loss prevention controls and database activity monitoring, additional SIM monitoring, etc., etc. What we have seen is there's obviously a nice overlap between the two, which sits in here. So if we have concentrated the last couple of years and we've concentrated on just the cybersecurity risks, most of the companies are ready for Papaya, since it's in effect now. I didn't think I was going to be so short. It's very quick. It's different when no people are asking questions. Just the last slide that I do want to show. Like I've mentioned, we've been doing a lot of incident response before lockdown even, and there's been some major ones in the press as well. I just want to make sure that everybody is aware. Please ensure that your endpoint security coverage is there, that you prevent lateral movement, ensure your patches are up to date, ensure your anti-malware technology is up to date, which must include some form of EDR or next-gen antivirus mechanism. Have a look at your internet footprint. What is out there about my company on the footprint, and effectively manage your vulnerabilities. And that is my slides. Very quick, short and sweet. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Well, Gerhard, very short and sweet. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. A reminder, if you've got any questions for Gerhard based on his presentation, please do use the Q&A button in the Zoom software, and we will get to those questions at the end of the presentations this morning. But I'm going to take advantage of being the host of today's session, Gerhard, to sneak in a question for you at this point. Is there a way to provide visibility across all of my security products?
Yeah, so if we look at it from in the NIST framework, when we look at the protect, we obviously deploy a bunch of technologies. Now, you can go with one vendor that can provide everything, and then obviously a vendor like Checkpoint, for example, they've got one management platform to provide that visibility across all the products. What we have seen, especially in the financial industry, is that the customers are less reluctant to put all their eggs in one basket. So what we have done as Performanta in the last 3 years, we've been developing a product called Core that just plugs into all the different security controls and actually provide that visibility across it. But also then at the same time, it also looks at your digital footprint on the internet side and just provide you that one view of everything.
Gerhard, thank you so much. So I believe that we have some polls in the software. So if I hit this button in Zoom right now, scrolls, I beg your pardon, a poll should appear on your screen. So I'm going to hit launch polling, and please do have a look at those questions and answer them. We'd be very keen to know the answers to those questions. And just a reminder again, if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A button in the software to send those through, and we will get to them as soon as the next speaker has delivered his presentation. But with that, it's my pleasure now to welcome our second speaker of the day, all the way from Israel, Checkpoint's Matan Burstein. Matan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Duncan. Hi, everyone. I'll start to share my screen. So, okay, is it visible? Can you see it?
It is, thank you.
It is, thank you. Okay, so I'm actually going to talk about the coronavirus and the after effects. So we call it the day after, preparing for the next global crisis, a cyber pandemic. So what we see is that obviously everyone feels it. The coronavirus dramatically changed how organizations operate, and also all of us. I'm at home. I think all of you are also at home. That means that we all shifted to remote working. So we are all connected right now to the internet, some of us through VPN to our companies, and some of us directly. In any case, we are now not protected by our headquarters. Okay, we are on ourselves. Second of all, we look at the focus on customer centricity and empathy, meaning that everyone is now trying to accommodate different services to their customers based on the current situations. If it's people serving food, so today they will go digital and try to ship it, right? So a lot of companies are trying to change how they conduct business in order to accommodate for the recent changes. And what we see is also an accelerated digital transformation. So obviously all these changes, everyone working from home, people cannot go to their companies, and that requires a lot of digital transformation. It's something that started before the coronavirus, definitely. Some companies and a lot of regulations were also forcing that, but there's no doubt that right now we see a very rapid interest and very rapid growth in these digital transformation domains. Okay, so how it impacted the IT environments. So obviously everyone working from home, that means that we had to accommodate for remote VPN access, so everything is secure. We're using more collaboration tools such as Zoom that we're using now, and Teams, and so many others. Also for remote desktop like Citrix. And obviously everyone is using the mobile phone much more. Even if you had bring your own device policy in your company, there's no doubt that the use of your mobile is something that we must look after, because now this becomes the let's say the riskier part in your network or your connected devices. So about the accelerated digital transformation, this mostly is directed towards the cloud, because obviously when we're looking at hardware that sits at the headquarters, right now it doesn't make sense anymore. People are connecting to cloud services, people are trying to consume company resources, and if we don't want to connect to back to the headquarters, we need to actually start the cloud journey and deploy more and more cloud technologies. So this is something from a personal experience. Last year, it was really hard to talk about cloud in South Africa and generally in Africa. And this year, and especially after COVID started, this has become a hot topic I speak about every day, all the time. There's no conversation that doesn't include cloud, the journey. Aside from that, the network and access. So obviously moving to the cloud and moving to working from remote, it requires some network changes. If it used to be one big network inside your headquarters connected to the branch offices, right now it's widespread. I mean, where's the network starting? Where is it ending? There's users that are company workers connected from everywhere, not just the branches, not just going to headquarters. The services that they require are not just something that is stored in a web server or something that's stored in the company's data centers. It's all around. So obviously we need to accommodate for different architecture, different designs of the network and the security around it, especially with cloud. And all of that during the corona had to be very agile. We had to do very quick things. Companies don't have the time anymore to make long decisions and long approval cycles for any change. They need to make dramatic decisions now in order to accommodate for the changing environment. And basically, this is one of the reasons why we have some issues today, because the businesses had to accommodate for the changes, and let's say they didn't consider security as a first priority. First of all was to just do it, get everyone online, get everyone connected, get everyone working. We'll take care of security afterwards. This caused, cutting corners, and today basically we are not behind the perimeter. We used to, companies used to hide behind the perimeter. They had a lot of resources, all the employees working in the same network, in the same data centers. And today it's just everywhere is a perimeter. Every one of us can be an attack vector to go inside the network today. So not only things change in the IT environment, but also from the other side, the hackers, okay? The hackers, they don't sit and wait. They take advantage of whatever they can. And during the coronavirus days, we saw a massive increase in attacks. As you can see, we're talking about over 200,000 weekly attacks, and most of them are phishing attacks. You'd be surprised that phishing attack is very, very successful because a lot of people are going online, they're requesting data, they want to get some information, they're going into these different websites, and they register. They might register with their original name or with their company user. And this is actually a phishing website that steals your credentials and then can be used. Also, we're seeing a lot of people, unfortunately, losing their jobs. Due to that, many companies are also seeking for new employees. So all this together creates an atmosphere of people sending each other CVs to help each other. And those CVs might contain a malicious part in them. And you might pass it on through your organization to your HR, to people that are relevant, and basically exposing them to more attacks. And this is definitely a COVID-related situation. And second of all, and also we're looking at the new normal. Okay, new normal means that we're downloading more apps to accommodate for other things. So Zoom, for example, you know how Zoom was looked at as a tool that is both giving us a lot of flexibility, but also there were a bunch of security issues with the tools that they didn't consider. So I even know that in South Africa you had one of your parliament meetings was hacked through Zoom. So one of the meetings was yeah, there were some obscene images there. We went into the IT teams of our customers and we conducted a very, very large survey across the entire world. And this is what we found. So basically we asked, what best describes your approach for moving forward in the current situation? Okay. And as you can see, 96%, okay, are looking into a difference of how it used to be. So some believe that nothing happened and we'll return back to what it used to be before Corona. But I think we can all agree that possibly things will change and maybe change dramatically. Okay. And definitely 63% see as the Corona effects and the impact are here to stay. So working from home, perimeter everywhere, using the collaboration tools, all these are going to be used here, and we need to find better ways to utilize them, but also to do this in a secure manner. We then asked, what is the most prominent effect of coronavirus on your IT assets? So what happened to you? So, you know, massively, you can see that everyone needed to move to remote workforce, 86%. We saw that a third of all of the people we interviewed, they basically looking into going into cloud or doing some other digital technology projects, like allowing more VPN, connecting branch offices differently, moving some resources to SaaS, for example. As you can see, a quarter is doing cloud. Okay, a quarter. I would say even more today. This was maybe 3 weeks ago. We then asked during the outbreak, what worked best to achieve business continuity? So the workforce flexibility, you know, companies that have factories and assembly lines could not enjoy this, but the more it's, let's say, an office job that you can theoretically do from your phone or from your computer, it doesn't matter if you don't have to be in the office. So that the flexibility of the job itself is what helped. But then also you can see that collaboration tools, obviously Zoom. So can you imagine doing a COVID pandemic like this 10 years ago with no Zoom, we would probably use like Skype or something, which would cost a lot of money, and it wouldn't be such a good collaboration tool to show and demonstrate and do webinars like we're doing now. So the collaboration tools have really helped to achieve that. Also acceleration of existing IT projects. So I can tell you that, again, from my own personal business, it was very, you know, a sales cycle could be in Africa, in average 9 months for me. And since the COVID started, I've managed to start deals and close them already, and it hasn't been 9 months yet. So you can only imagine that companies and different executives are looking into expediting whatever project they had, or even pushing aside projects that they want to do in order for them to achieve first what we just talked about. So getting the workforce to work from home and getting all the collaboration tools and all the hardware and networking designs to accommodate for that. We asked, what's the top future cyber related concerns? So where do you see this industry in terms of cyber going? So everyone mentioned that they do see an increase in cyber attacks. I can tell you, I don't have time to show you, but I can tell you that South Africa is being hit 3 times more than the global rate. That means a company in South Africa is attacked about 1,400 times a week, okay? And that's 3 times more than the global rate. Now, we can also see that one of the biggest concerns, especially with C-levels, is the attacks of the home PCs and mobiles that are connected to organizations. So obviously, this is, as I mentioned, what seems to be very nice to us. We have our computer at home, we feel safe, but in reality, we are not only exposed, but we're also exposing the whole company. So if, for example, I receive an email and I click on it and I open it and it contains some ransomware, this can now do lateral movement into the organization and spread around the other endpoints if we're not protected in a regular way, you know, in the proper way, meaning that we have all the tools that we need to protect the endpoint, to protect the connectivity, and then to protect the resource that we're connected to. And obviously, we need also identity protection in that regard, so we don't get phishing attack. We also see attacks on mobile devices. So a lot of concern is now forwarded to the mobile, because this was, let's say, a gap in most companies. Most companies are not covering their phones. They don't have any security tools, and they try to avoid using the phone as a collaboration tool, as a thing to use officially. But who doesn't use the phone to work? I mean, everyone WhatsApps, everyone uses the phone to read emails, to connect to some resources, and so on. So this becomes another attack vector, which is very successful. Then we asked, what's the top priority to safely enable the new normal? Okay, so looking at the new normal, what do we need to prepare for? So most companies and most IT teams, they mentioned tightening the network security and focus on prevention. Okay, and this speaks very clear with Checkpoint's philosophy, which is basically prevention and not detection. What we're looking to achieve is basically if we take the analogy to COVID, the actual COVID, the pandemic. So would you prefer to have everyone infected and then get a medicine? Or would you prefer everyone getting vaccinated and no one gets infected? That is really the debate here. And Checkpoint is looking, and I think this is also what this graph shows, people are, and also in COVID, people prefer the vaccine. They don't want to get COVID. They prefer to be protected and not handle the disease with medicine. And this exactly the same with cyber. You don't want to be attacked. That's it. You don't want to deal with attacks. You don't want to investigate. You don't want to chase all the time your internal IT and your internal networking and check all the time and see that there's an attack and try to mitigate it. What you want to do is basically prevent it from even arriving, not handle it, not have to use the incident response teams, and so on. Okay, So we can all agree that at some point we will find a vaccine, we will find a medicine, okay? And the pandemic as we know it, it will change, it will pass away, it will be much more simple to handle. But in terms of cyber, the effects are already here, and they are here to stay. And what we see is basically cloud adoption. What started already is not gonna revert. It's gonna only continue, and it's gonna accelerate even more. Working from home, I believe, and I think that we can talk about it in the Q&A, but I believe that most CEOs today are rethinking this whole office philosophy, coming to the office. They're going to go into hybrid models. They're going to reduce their real estate footprint. They're going to reduce their operational costs for all the branch offices. And they're going to shift into a hybrid working mode that is partly at home, partly at the office, or a shared space or of some kind. But definitely everyone coming every day, 5 days a week to the office. I don't really believe that's the situation. What we also see is that IT and OT networks today, because everyone is operating from everywhere, we need to have them seamlessly connected. And even with today's digital transformation in the OT networks, it's more relevant because there's a lot of new machinery and a lot of new things that we need to obviously control. And biggest for me, as I see it, the prevalent use of mobile and home PCs. So everyone is connected from a mobile or a PC. Right now, we're all doing it. I'm not sure all of us are protected in the right manner. I know I am. So this all creates a very high potential for a security event, okay? All of it, working from home, the cloud adoption, not a lot of people know how to deal with cloud. There's going to be a lot of security mistakes, a lot of security gaps due to lack of experience in this. And it's very common, and we need to understand that. So even the World Economic Forum and Forbes, they see that it's only a matter of time until the largest cyber attack in history. Okay, there's no doubt we should prepare for a global cyber pandemic. Okay, you can imagine that the COVID disease has been passed around really, really quickly, and that's what made it so effective. So the disease itself is not so bad like Ebola, for example, but the ease of spread and the amount of people getting infected, that is the biggest problem with the COVID. And the same with cyber. What we see is that more and more computers are getting infected, ransomwares, malwares, trojans, more cyber attacks every day, not just by those, people trying to squeeze in money, but also cyber mafias and governments trying to topple each other. This is, we're living in a cyber warfare age already. Most of us, they don't realize that too much, but it's there, and everyone is can be attacked at any time. Okay, so what can we do? What we should do? Okay, so we need to prepare for the next global crisis, which is a cyber pandemic. This could hit us personally. This could hit governments. This could hit infrastructure. This could hit healthcare. We just don't know. But not preparing for it will be a mistake. So we need to prepare backups. We need to prepare a lot of security measurements to make sure we do everything possible to prevent such an attack. But we also need to make the contingency plan, have high availability environments, clusters wherever possible, DDoS protectors in case of, there's been a lot of DDoS attacks in South Africa recently. The pandemic will disappear. Its cyber effect will stay. This means that we don't need to think the same thinkings that we had in the past. We need to change our mindset. We need to look at the new normal and what we need to do to achieve operational and security success in that new normal. Today, our data is everywhere. How is your cybersecurity? So this exactly speaks to your mobile, your endpoint, and even, we're moving forward to IoT. So we're going to have smart watches, smart TVs, smart cars. We know already that the healthcare is a lot of it is IoT, security cameras and connected cities. 5G networks are coming, and so are the products. So we're going to see data flowing from so many devices to hubs, and then to cloud services and to SaaS, and we need to accommodate for that. So your world has changed. Protect it, meaning that we have to urge everyone to start looking into, okay, if we knew COVID will hit us, wouldn't we start to wear masks before? Wouldn't we keep social distancing before? So we need to understand also in the cyber that we see it already coming. Let's do everything we can already today before it hits us. So how do you actually protect yourself from a cyber pandemic? And this will be very quick, and we'll finish there. So we need to have real-time prevention. This is what I explained. So achieving real-time prevention is very difficult. You need to have a lot of components in order to achieve that. On every, let's say, connection that you have, a point of connection, you need to have some kind of an agent or some kind of policy that has a real-time prevention in it. Okay, so not just for the known attacks or for the known things that we are already discovered, but also for the unknown. Okay, real-time prevention means that we also protect ourselves from zero-day attacks that were not seen in the wild yet. And the way to do it is to use sandboxing and emulation devices and technologies to prevent these. So every new document or every new website or every new signature that we identify, instead of letting it pass, we first emulate it and then we give it a verdict. By that, we allow it or block it. And that way we can already submit it into a threat engine, and by that, protect the world. Okay, so we only need to identify the attack at the first time to block it. So we have basically real-time prevention. Then we're talking about consolidation and visibility. So it used to be very good to approach to do let's say best of breeds. So let's say our endpoint should be the best product there is, our network should have the best firewall, and so on. Today, what we see is that basically most attacks are not coming from brute forcing the devices or the protections. They're actually coming from security gaps within the human error. So different security teams managing the same IT infrastructure and security are not actually closing their gaps in the best way. They're actually creating more gaps between the products. The products themselves, they don't communicate, and the visibility is not very clear. Therefore, we would need external third-party tools to actually consolidate just to get some kind of visibility. But again, from a threat prevention, they don't communicate. So even if you have a very good tool for detection, in terms of prevention, if you don't consolidate, it's like having two soldiers next to each other that they can't communicate and they can't help each other. Okay, so in reality, we're talking about consolidating from multiple vendors to single vendor, or at least less vendors, so you can have better security posture and eliminate the infection blind spots caused by IT teams. Then we need to secure everything. So as I mentioned, if we're going to secure our networks, we're going to get hit by our mobile. If we're going to secure our mobiles, we're going to get hit through the cloud. If we secure the cloud, we're going to get hit by IoT, and everyone will be surprised. We need to secure everything. We need to understand that everything that is connected has to be secured, and it has to have a unified policy and something that can be the same across all these devices: mobile, endpoint, IoT, cloud, and network. Okay, and then we need to be swift and agile. So we have the ability to change things, to make sure that we have new protections added, new signatures added, everything that is being done to be swift and agile. If you're under attack, you don't have the time to make long investigations and long mitigation plans. You need to act swiftly. Okay. This is, if you guys want, you can take a screenshot of this. This is how to stay safe. So from working from home, rapid move to the cloud, critical infrastructure, and increased network capacity. So basically, in working from home, we need to make sure we implement endpoints. We need to make sure we train our employees not to press on links and not to connect to websites and immediately put their credentials in, but to first look at that has a certificate, that it's a trusted website, that it's the right one. And obviously, I think this is something people don't do. Install a mobile defense app. So it doesn't have to be Checkpoint, but install an antivirus or some kind of protection on the mobile. This is very important. In the move to the cloud, we need to make sure we invest in cloud security posture management to avoid mistakes done by lack of experience of the new cloud teams. We need to deploy workload security for containers and serverless apps. This is for the advanced cloud journeys that are already starting to use cloud workload and shifted workloads to the cloud. We need to protect those, okay? They come with a lot of different ways to be exploited. We need to make sure we don't leave that as a gap. And real-time prevention for threats with IaaS security. So basically that's creating a perimeter in the cloud. You can do that with gateways like firewalls in the cloud and create a policy same as you had in the perimeter. In the critical infrastructure, we want to have IoT security. This doesn't exist today from a layer 3 perspective. We want to bolster the network security posture with red team. So maybe have some people try to if you don't have a red team, there's many services that does it, give you security analysis where you're exposed, and this can save lives in reality. Okay, let's jump and increase network capacity. So obviously everyone working from home, connecting to the cloud, connecting to headquarters, connecting to the branches. We need everything to be scalable and allow growth to continue so we don't get blocked. I mentioned at the beginning that flexibility of the workforce is very important. This is what allows it. All protections must be enabled while keeping business continuity. So we don't want to cut corners and say, okay, we need to establish this connection. So let's drop the security there just so we'll have the connection. So just to finish, this is the resemblance and the lessons learned between the real COVID pandemic and what we see as a cyber pandemic. You can see the infection rates. You can only imagine the infection rate in a cyber pandemic. It's much larger. Prevention, today we have vaccination that is being tested. It's not there yet. In real cyber, we have a vaccine. We can invent a vaccine really quickly as soon as it starts. So we can leverage that. And best practices, we've got the mask, the hygiene, the social distancing. So in cyber pandemic, it's awareness, cyber hygiene, which means that you have to have all the right patches, the right tools, the right updates for everything, and obviously with awareness together, not do mistakes. And asset distancing, it's like social distancing, creating segmentations and multi-factor authentication, making it harder and enabling zero trust basically across your network. So this was the day after Corona. Hope you liked it. Thank you.
Matan, thanks so much for a fascinating presentation. Before we get to Q&A, I wanted to just ask you a quick question while I've got you here on the line. Ransomware is in the news again just this last week over the attack on Garmin. How much of a problem is ransomware?
So ransomware is a very easy to execute attack. Okay, you only need one person who does a mistake. Okay, it's very easy to protect against. All you need is an anti-malware solution on your anti-ransomware, sorry, on your endpoint agent. It's obviously something that Checkpoint offers, but it also can be blocked through the firewall. So it must have been a problem on both sides. So probably a user connected to a malicious site or downloaded a malicious file, and it didn't go through the 2 layers of protection. It went through one, or maybe even not that. And once it's in, it's very hard to mitigate. And this is easy. Because it's so easy, people use it more. So you hear about it more. And even just now, I don't know if you guys heard about Garmin, the smartwatch for runners. So they just paid. They just paid the ransom to get all the devices working back. So it's a problem. Once you get infected with ransomware, there's nothing really you can do.
And once the company starts paying these ransoms, it just emboldens them.
Yeah, and it's really easy to calculate. A ransomware attack costs you more than to protect from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Matan, if I could ask you to mute your microphone while we're doing Q&A and while you're not speaking, because I am picking up a little bit of interference or feedback on the line. I'd appreciate that. Just a reminder, you can use the Q&A button. We've got about 18 minutes of Q&A time ahead of us. We're getting some questions through in the Q&A box. You're also welcome to speak directly to our panelists today if you like. You can raise your hand in the Zoom software. I see we have a raised hand from Jenny Juniker. Jenny, we will come to you in a moment. We'll allow you to speak directly to our panelists. If that was not your intention, please do put your hand down. But if anyone else wants to actually speak directly to our panelists today, please do raise your hand and we will try to get to you before the top of the hour. But in the interim, I'm going to get to some of the questions which have popped up in the Q&A window. And Gerhard and Matan, please both feel free to tackle any of these questions. So let's take them in the order that they came in. The first question came from Tommy Harris, and Tommy said much of incident response focuses on the technology side. I think communication to end users is poor. Latest example being the Garmin outage. There we go again, 2 weeks ago. Actually, I think it was this week, or was it last week, Tommy? He says very poor communication strategy and messaging from these companies. Matan, what's your take on the PR side of things and managing an incident?
Well, it's very uncomfortable for companies to be in this situation. Obviously, it impacts their business, not just from technical perspective. Customers could not access their services, but also it creates a PR nightmare as a company is losing faith and losing reputation due to these. I think that you can see where Yahoo is. If you remember Yahoo, look at where Yahoo is today and where it was. I think after their breach a few years back, it kind of killed their business completely. So they need to take care of also their reputation. And I don't see many companies do this well. She's absolutely right.
Let me ask the next question. Leandra asks, let me direct this one to Gerhard, and Matan, feel free to jump in. But Leandra asks, what is the difference in security in the cloud versus security on premise?
Not much, actually. No, there's actually a lot of difference. But you can also simplify it. Once again, we need to look at it. Firstly, we need to start at the network. So if we look at Microsoft Azure as an example, if you're using their infrastructure as a service, they've got a decent firewall, but it doesn't do the layer 7 protection. So you've got to look at that and you've got to start there. Do proper network segmentation. So the basics are still in play. Do basic segmentation or proper network segmentation. Do proper patch management. Then you can start building your security products or portfolio from there. There's not a big difference, except that you're transmitting some of the data to a third party, which you obviously need to protect.
Matan, anything?
That's offline as well.
From a networking side, Gerhard is absolutely correct. There's not a lot changing. We can do the same gateways that we do in the premise, also on the cloud. But the cloud brings a new challenge. Don't forget, this is not our equipment, so it's sitting somewhere else. That creates a different type of problems, which is a lot of user access and permission control and compliancy and regulation. So it does create a lot of different aspects of security that we need to attend to. The more we shift into cloud, the more we see that there are new services also that are coming up, SaaS services that require different protections, that require different levels of security. And I think that the cloud allows us also to do much more things. So we'll have APIs for protection, for deploying protection. We'll have cloud bots protecting us and searching for threats. We'll have auto remediation in the cloud that with good configuration allows us to overcome challenges easier and quicker. So it brings a lot of benefits, but also a lot of different techniques of how to achieve better operations with security. So there is a change there. On the networking side, less. On the scope of security, there's a big challenge there.
Thank you, Matan. We're going to go across now to Jenny Juniker. Jenny, you have a question for our panelists?
Good morning, everybody. Just normal employee, secretary, and I just wanted to find out, what can a normal employee do from home, as a non-IT person, to secure, my system.
Your system at home.
If you don't really, you're not an IT person, and to make sure that you secure your system.
Matan, do you want to tackle that one first?
Yeah, really simple. So we have the best way for you is to have on your mobile, just download a security app and download it for your kids, for your husband, for everyone. Okay, it's not that expensive. It could cost you $1 or $2 a month. I think it's worth it, protecting your identity, protecting your home resources and everything. Another point that we usually need to tackle here is the company that allows you to work from home. They need to bring in solutions on your endpoint. If your computer is your personal computer, then you must have some kind of agent that is coming from the company to protect you and also allow you the VPN connectivity to your office. But if you don't have that, then again, the same thing I told you on the mobile, just download a security app for your computer, either by Checkpoint or any other company. Protect yourself. It's not like you have your government or police or anyone doing it for you, okay? In the cyber arena, it's everyone for himself, okay? Yeah, we have to understand this. It's us against the world.
Scary stuff. Gerhard, let me direct this next question to you. This one comes from an anonymous attendee who asks, as a small business owner, should I be concerned about business attacks, or are enterprises more targeted?
Okay, I'll answer the first one in a simple word. Yes, you should be worried. And we're actually seeing the rise as well. It is not just enterprise customers. Checkpoint's threat cloud as well, or their research center as well, they keep telling or showing examples of small businesses getting targeted. Small business is sometimes an entry into large enterprises as well, so we need to be careful of that. And if I can give a simple example, like the banks, for example, they use this cash in transit company where they're obviously automating all the time. Imagine them breaching that the cash in transit company and then getting into the banks that way as well. So it's just an example, but it does happen. So yes, you have to worry, and it's all about the data. If you're storing customers' data, which could be personal data as such, you've got to be extremely vigilant of that.
Gerhard, thank you. Let's carry on with the questions. Thanks for sending them through. The next question comes from Pranesh. Pranesh, I'm not sure I should try and pronounce your surname. I think it's, oops, and it just disappeared off my screen. It's Pranesh Vithilingam, I think. And Pranesh's question is, he's actually got a three-part question, but he asks, one, how do we control unmanaged devices accessing system resources, cloud services, and DLP for cloud services through AWS and Office 365? And he then says, how do we protect unmanaged devices if they are processing PII? I presume PII is personally identifiable information. And three, contractors use unmanaged devices. They have their own policy requirements. Matan, do you want to try and tackle that one? So
we have a few solutions for that. There are obviously the managed solutions and there's the unmanaged solutions. The unmanaged solutions, you need a SaaS application for those, a SaaS protection for those SaaS applications that you use. That takes care of the identity. For example, if you try to connect from your home and then someone else tries to use the same credentials exactly from a different geo in the world, it will identify that quickly. If you try to access the same with the same user credentials at the same time, it also sees that. So it monitors. There's AIs that check and give some kind of assessment on your user profile or your connection at the moment, how safe it is. And these are SaaS applications that you connect to. For corporate resources, you might need to integrate some kind of identity agent that will obviously create some specific signature of your computer that will identify it, okay? It doesn't have to be a managed one, but it does work with identity, okay? Other than that, you can create some kind of a segmentation in your network to allow, unmanaged devices to connect to some resources, but not to all. So it's basically a security approach and a mix of solutions that allow it.
Our next question, I think, Matan, is also for you. It's from Deepak Hari. Deepak asks, when Europe implemented GDPR, what were some of the cybersecurity concerns that were highlighted and how was this mitigated?
So there is no, if you read GDPR, there's no real blueprint of how to create a GDPR-enabled organization in terms of security. It just says, the bigger you are, the more you are expected to spend on security, and the more services you deliver, the more you need, and the more data you keep, the more you need security. So that's one aspect of it. So it doesn't necessarily impact the African continent yet. It does impact companies that want to do business with Europe. So we do see that impacting. Another point here in the GDPR is the mandatory, they need to tell you if they got attacked. They need to be exposed. They need to also provide, maybe sometimes there's a fine, and you know, obviously there's a big fine to it. So the fine is meant to scare companies into buying the security products. So again, prevention is better than detection and then mitigation.
Thank you. Just a reminder, if you want to ask a question of our panelists directly using your own voice, raise your hand and we will promote you to talk in this webinar. But lots of questions coming in the Q&A, so I'm going to get back to those right away. I think, Gerhard, this next question is a South African related one. Let me pose this one to you. It's from Puven Naidu, and he asks, what's your best approach to have decision making at C-levels in organizations adopt new initiatives foster for security? He says it's a challenge at most companies, but especially within state-owned entities. How do you get the C-level execs, the CEO, etc., to buy into the pressing need to secure your systems?
The best way for the execs to buy in is have a breach. No. Money. It's actually not even a joke. A lot of companies, and I'm talking big organizations within South Africa, only started spending after massive breaches. Typically, what we would do as Performanta is we follow a consultative approach. So it is not just, listen, go and buy X, Y, Z. Don't just go and buy. There's got to be a decision around it. And it's the product that you want to buy, or the service that you want to buy, or solution, etc., that you want to buy, has got to support some form of business process as well, or business continuity, etc., etc. Security, unfortunately, especially in Africa, is a grudge purchase. People don't want to spend money on it because they think, the first thing is they think it's never going to happen to me. And the only time really when, especially in government as well, we saw it with the city of Joburg as well, when they were breached last year, they only started spending money after the breach on security. It is extremely challenging, but there is ways around it. And the first thing is just create your roadmap, list where you are protected right now, identify the gaps where you are not. A good example is endpoints, and I know there's a question somewhere there about endpoint security as well, and look at those type of things and actually try and do the low-hanging fruit first, approaching that, because most of the times those low-hanging fruits are cheap, or cheap is obviously relative.
Mm-hmm. Now, Matan, Leandra has asked, can you show us the threat map with live threats as they are happening? So I don't know if you can get that up on your screen.
I can. I also wanted to address one of the questions there regarding the amount of attacks. So this is a report that we draw from our threat cloud. As you can see here, this is what I was referring to. The pink line above is South Africa. Okay, and you can see the amount of attacks per organization in the last 6 months compared to what the global rate is. So you guys are 3 times more than the global average. Okay, and this comes from the same place where the threat map. You can see also here specifically the types of attacks that we see. We see a lot of mobile attacks. So if you look 3 times more than the global average, you're getting 15% of your attacks coming through mobile. Okay, 3% go to banking. Crypto mining is almost 10%. Bots are attacking you, or it means that there's a lot of command and control malware sitting in your endpoints already today. And info stealer, these are the ones we need to take care of in the identity theft and phishing. You guys want to see the threat map? Let me load it.
Well, while you're doing that, we've got a few more questions coming in. Let me ask this question. It's a bit of a fun question while you're loading that map there. And maybe, Gerhard, you want to tackle this one. But Chad Cunningham asks, I've heard people say that Apple Mac users don't need security. Is this correct?
No. Unfortunately, there is threats, and we're seeing it more and more as well. Even the Apple Store that was famed for being so secure with applications they allow, etc. We've seen attacks coming through Apple, which the map will obviously support as well, that Matan will bring up. But no, essentially, Macs are not as safe as people believe. There is a lot of vulnerabilities within Mac as well that needs patching the whole time as well. So no, definitely not.
All right, thanks. Now, here's the map. Matan, do you want to talk us through this quickly?
Yeah, all of you can go threatmap.checkpoint.com. You can see basically how dynamic this is. Everyone is attacking everyone. If you look at this, it's very interesting. You see some of the nicer countries are actually big attackers. Like you'd see Scandinavian countries, you see UK, you see United States is the biggest attacker in the world, mostly. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is an attack coming from the US, like the government. It could be just a proxy in between. So for example, North Korea is attacking South Korea through United States. So what you can see here on the left is the types of attacks. You see a lot of Trojans, you see a lot of, so right now I see Netherlands is attacking Kenya, for example. So you can only imagine the nice things that you can look here and see, and it analyzes the daily attacks. So you can see that we had a very big peak in May, very large one.
What was that?
It was let's say the after effects of Corona before the companies managed to do their changes, the necessary changes. So I think we took over. I think a lot of companies already managed to recover by the end of May through June, but it's not what I was referring to as a cyber pandemic. In a cyber pandemic, we'll see this bar as a very low peak compared to what we imagine.
Right, thanks, Matan. We've got a question now from Michael Tromp. Michael, what's your question?
So, yeah, just a few from my side. So, I mean, the first one is ransomware here to stay? Is it going anywhere?
Guys, no, it looks like the answer is no to that question.
So ransomware is a social hack, basically. They use your friends, they use your colleagues, they use your personality to try and create an attack using a sophisticated social hacking. So basically, let's say you're part of a chess club, okay? So they will try to attack your chess friends by creating some kind of very smart targeted message that will convince them that this is not a malicious attack. And once they are convinced, they will press anything. And once they press a ransomware attack, that's it. So it's very easy to use. You don't need to be a very, an expert in hacking to do that. You don't need to attack a company. You can attack just a single person to already make money. So I don't see this as running away, something going away anytime soon. And it keeps on creating new and new signatures. So it's not like we can have a ransomware signature and then that's it. We caught all the ransomwares. As long as there's going to be people, there's going to be people making mistakes. And I think ransomware is one of the best ways to do that. Another way, by the way, is sextortion. Okay, sextortion is really big also. You don't hear about it as much, but it's very similar.
All right, Michael, thanks for that question. We won't have time to get to your other questions, I'm afraid. It is the top of the hour, but I just want to get to one final question before we wrap up the webinar today, and that's from Khaleboe Mokhotsi. Khaleboe asks, hi guys, if you have moved the organization data to the likes of AWS or Microsoft Office 365, can you safely say that you have transferred the data security risks to Microsoft or to Amazon? Gerhard?
No, you can't assume that. Firstly, yes, although the big players, they will build as much security in as possible as they can. When you are hosting your data, and especially with the Papaya Act now signed into law, you are still responsible for that data. So even though you're transferring some of the risks, you still don't know what's happening in their background. And yes, they're building all the security around. I always joke with my friends around a bra and say, guys, everybody's moving to the cloud. I can't wait for one of these big cloud providers to be compromised in the back end, because then we move back on site again. It's just a little bit of tongue in cheek. But yeah, you can't assume that you're transferring the risks. Absolutely not. Still your data. You still need to ensure that there's some security around it.
All right, guys, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you to everyone for joining us in this webinar today. Thank you for some fantastic questions. I really enjoyed the interactivity of the session today. We're going to have to leave it there, though. We are out of time. Gerhard Swart is Performanta, I beg your pardon, Senior Solutions Consultant. And Matan Burstein is Checkpoints. I'm getting my tongue all in a knot here. Matan Burstein is Checkpoints Regional Head of Security Engineering. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us on this webinar today.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.